everybody is victim when it comes to availability of water. Atmanirbhar is not in sense of business. I think Atmanirbhar more in sense of water security is supposed to be our new approach.
Namaste and welcome to our very first episode of our new podcast series, Understanding Asian Hydropolitics through 5 questions, brought to you by Asian Confluence. And I'm your host, Neeraj. And I'm truly excited to begin this journey with you as we explore the vital, complex, and often overlooked world of water politics in Asia. Each episode in this series will focus on one key issue that unfolds 5 important questions, questions that aims to bring clarity, provoke thought, and hopefully spark more conversations in policy circles and beyond. So, for our first episode, we are starting with a topic that affects every one of us in India, India's water security challenges. And I'm very honored to have with me today Dr. Deepti Acharya, who is an associate professor at the Department of Political Science from the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda. Dr. Acharya's work focuses mainly on public policy, water governance, and of course, water security. She is also the author of The Water and the Public Policy in India, Politics, Rights and Governance, which has been published by Routledge in 2021. Dr. Acharya, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Neeraj. Thank you for having me.
Let us start our conversation by understanding the broader picture. When people hear about water security, they often think of scarcity, but it's more than that. So I want to ask you describing how would you describe India's current water security situation, and what are the biggest challenges we are facing within the country?
Thank you, Neeraj. It's a very important question before entering into any conversation about water. It's a very important question to understand that, and that is beautiful that we know that water scarcity is much more than just stress. So when we people are looking at this, India is a very different country. Normally, what we are doing, if you will go to Google and if you will search, you will find it out that 4 or 5 normal problems are being described, like groundwater is reducing or water is polluted and like that. But I think problem is different. The nature of problem is that Indian population or Indians are suffering from water. They are facing difficulties about unavailability of water, but still they are not very sensitive about it. So water security is certainly one issue, but what is the nature of it and how you will interpret it is the biggest challenge before India. And because there is a big gap within the cities, like some regions are having water, some regions are not having. So water sensitivity is not developed so far. So although people are suffering, still they are not very sensitive about the preserving water, not to polluting water. And this is very surprised that for 5 days you are not having water. Now 6 days, on the sixth day you are getting water, and then you are wasting it. So I think that water stress is very different. The nature is very different in India because people are not very much disciplined, water discipline when it comes to the question of stress or scarcity in India. So this reinterpretation of the issue is very much required. First thing. Second thing is that we have generalized the problem too much. Like if I will talk about that water is, groundwater level is reduced. And why it is reduced? Because some of the groups are using it, tremendously without, and I think biases, bureaucratic biases are allowing them to do so. So I think that this generalization is supposed to be controlled. Third problem is that very often, normally we are saying that agriculture is, using too much of water, these and that. But which agriculture? The big farmers are using much water, but the small farmers are facing this scarcity or stress. So this generalization we should come out. And the third is, which is I think the last point of, is that when we are looking at security, it is beyond technocentric approach, which we need to understand that how governance is supposed to be considered when it comes to the security beyond the technocentric approach. So political approach is also one of the lens which is supposed to be used when water scarcity or water stress or insecurity, or when we are searching for water security is being hunted for.
That's really a very clear breakdown, I must say, and thank you for striking all the the challenges which you have just presented in a very manageable way. And I hope that the points which you have just mentioned about institutional gaps or ecological stress, it that really helps helps the frame this issue. But now let's turn our attention beyond borders, because India shares rivers with almost all its neighbors. Like, for example, China is there, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. So these rivers carry more than just water. They carry also the politics and the strategy. So, in your view, how much do you see these boundaries, influence within India and externally also? Like, if you were to compare with the rivers like Ganges or the Brahmaputra, what are your views on it?
See, this is very, I think, very political and tricky question, because what is happening, the recent development has made water sharing, transboundary water sharing, a very critical issue. As again, I would like to, go to simplification of the entire discourse. You have just mentioned about the institutional gaps or the problem of governance and so on. But I think, or geopolitical, challenges. I think we need to simplify this even more. That when you are talking about institutional gaps, when you are talking about the geopolitical issues, and when you are talking about transboundary, this is certainly a geopolitical issue. But for Indians, those who are not very much, well informed or well understood about the water issues, these terms are becoming more and more complex, and it is not offering anything. So they are not, they feel detached, not very much attached with it. They feel कि ये कुछ, this is something related to some big discussions, and it has nothing to do with us. Problem starts from there. When we are looking at this transboundary, multiple approaches India could have used. Like many scholars are arguing about benefit sharing is supposed to be encouraged. That multi-level, task is supposed to be there. Tracks, multi-tracks are supposed to be established. But I think that this will not work when it comes to India and the transboundary, tensions. I think that there is a need to have a new approach, which we can say capacity building approach, uh, with the lens of humanitarian grounds. Why I'm talking about this is that India recently, we have seen that when India has, decided about the Indus water treaties, how world has reacted. Certainly, because India is in a strong position, many countries are taking a stand with India. But I have a doubt that if India will carry the same attitude towards Indus treaty, whether we will get external and internal support or not. Because India will get challenge within India. India cannot take a very strong step, I feel so, when it comes to transboundary. Second thing is that when we people are looking at Brahmaputra and when we are looking at China's role, obviously power will play a very important role, and nobody can deny that China, as being a communist liberalist, will always play a negative role. With this acceptance, I think India, and therefore I was talking about this approach where you can have a capacity building of your own water resources. And the second, you should adopt a humanitarian, grounds as well. Then I am not in much favor of dam construction, because I feel that it is, restricting the right to life of river. But since it is now very popular to have dams, and dams are now the, symbols of development, so I am surrendering myself, uh, in front of this understanding, although I'm not much favor in that. India have to build dams. There is no doubt about it because India needs to assure the capacity to preserve the water. But I don't think that this is the only solution because at the domestic level, first India has to, preserve water and create new water capacities. Why humanitarian ground is very important, or lens, humanitarian lens is very important for India because if you will see, India cannot avoid, sufferings of Bangladesh. We all know that there is Faraka Barrage, which is, constructed in Kolkata. Because of that, Bangladesh is suffering, you know, and they are always putting in, global, in front of global community that see India is trying to, and especially during the, summers when water level is getting reduced, and the argument is that it is disturbing the ecology of the Bangladesh. Uh, the problem is that India is having a reputation or impression of a soft state. Geographically, India's location is like that it cannot take a very harsh step when it comes to water sharing between China, Pakistan, or whatever. And we all know that India is not only upper riparian, it is middle riparian as well. So, if you are acting negatively on this ground, be ready that some other state will act negative towards you. So, whether you have that capacity to handle that negativity or not. And if you have not developed that type of capacity, I think you should withhold with your actions. And since I know it's very, against interest of nation because and also the security, water security of the nation, when I will say that before, compromising the riparian rights of any state, a state should think twice. Although the international laws, including the, when we are looking at, Vienna Convention, Article 60, 62, both are in favor of India, which is allowing that in exceptional circumstances any treaty can be cancelled, postponed, or anything. But still, I feel that water is such a resource that needs to be tackled very carefully. So, everybody is victim when it comes to availability of water. You cannot be in absolute position when it comes to water resources, because it's constantly flowing. You don't know what will happen next year in India or after a few years in India. So you need to have a good relations with your, neighboring states. And even otherwise, if you will see historically, culturally, India is so much closed with all these, states with which India is sharing water bodies, that India cannot take a very strong step because cultural disturbance will disturb the internal politics in India. This I believe.
That's really insightful, and I really like how you framed water not just as a resource, but as a strategic and even more, symbolic issue. So, given these challenges, the what kind of ideas or the policy approaches do you think that can help India build stronger cooperation around water and with its specifically its neighboring states?
Yes, yes. I think, therefore, in the beginning, I was talking about the capacity approach, that India needs to give a clear message to the states with which India is sharing the water bodies, that India is having a capacity to conserve water within. Right now, why there is so much of tension, because all these states are too much depend on the rivers as a water bodies. They have not created their own system, water conservation system. So first step is that India, by creating conservation system within it, like we can have example of universities, like my university can have water conservation system. Each school can have buildings, big buildings, hospitals can have. So if each subsystem of India as a system, I'm not talking about Indian states, I am talking about each group as a part of the system. If each body, each group, each individual will start creating capacity, water capacity, then a time will come when India will be water independent, and then India will be in a position to take steps, strong steps, when it comes to water sharing with neighboring states. So yeah, my approach, I don't know, maybe many maybe not agree, instead of constantly talking about the water body sharing and these and that, I think first you should start, because India is not a country where rain frequency is, although it is now disturbed more and more, but still India is in a better position. You can use those rain, and very important is change the idea of smart city, about which I am fully convinced that the problem, water problems, I don't know how, what type of idea we are having about smart cities. We are focusing more on roads and less on water. So I think that smart city idea is supposed to be reconsidered. And instead of looking again and again, I am not saying that we should compromise with the water sharing and we should surrender our all rights on water bodies. But I think before claiming the water rights on because of riparian status what India is having, I think we need to focus more on internal capacity building and then start with. And if you will look at the European framework, they have done like that. They have their own strong water mechanisms, infrastructures, and on the basis of that, they are not too much in disputes or too much in conflicts with the neighboring states. They are independent and then they are bargaining. So it is, I am not against negotiation or bargaining, but my simple understanding is that before going into it, you need to, because you never know what will happen. If India will be very harsh in terms of treaties with Bangladesh, Pakistan, China, though I don't think that we are in a position to take any action. But Nepal and Bhutan, though they are very small, states. I think that is not the part of. It should not be the part of water diplomacy when it comes to Nepal and Bhutan, because India is, I think, should take a soft stand towards these two states so that we can have a strong, position in South Asia. Challenges with Bangladesh and Pakistan, and this both these countries are very close to China. We have seen that how past in few weeks back how China was trying to have a good relations with Pakistan, and we know that Pakistan is always getting support from China. So I think that we need to change the strategy by Atmanirbhar is not in sense of business. I think Atmanirbhar more in sense of water security is supposed to be our new approach towards the disputes and so on.
Okay, that's really a hopeful note and a very important one. But now let's shift us something that is very impossible to ignore. That is climate change, and India's future is also shaped by climate change. Like we have seen that melting glaciers, erratic rainfall, what you have just mentioned, and these extreme events are also becoming very common. So, how do you think that these changes are affecting India's long term water planning and how we can adopt them for a long term?
I am sorry, but on this question, I am going to be very negative. And the reason is that I think I am having support of World Bank's report as well. Today only, India Today's report is saying that World Bank is saying that India is doing good in sustainable development goals, but not in environment. So it's a very political statement that when you are talking about sustainable development goals, and then you are saying that you are not doing good at environment. The purpose of sustainable development goal was to sustain the environment. Okay, and then on one ground you are saying that you are doing good, like means you are studying well, but you are not scoring good marks. So that means this two is not possible together. either India is not doing good in sustainable development goals, or India is having good scale or good improvement in the environment. Now, why I am negative about it, that it's very difficult. Certainly, climate change is affecting, or it is the one of the main reason of water insecurities in India. But I think that India will not able to do much until and unless the idea of development is not being reconceptualized. Like, we feel that in India, we feel that maximum cars, maximum buildings is a symbol of development, and all these we know that is causing damages to the environment. Right now, when we are using internet, we know that we are damaging the environment. The issue, I don't know how to say this, in how to put this in words, but I don't know, we are living in a world where we are creating problem and then saying that how to solve the problem. You are the part of the problem. You need to redefine the meaning of development itself. So development is not how we have inculcated it. Like, in Western countries, they could have said, because density is very less, population is very less, India cannot have a westernized concept of development. And until and unless this is not unwesternized, if until and unless it is not decolonized, the idea of development, then I think that we will not able to control the damages that are happening to climate. And forget about future planning, because whatever you will plan, your interpretation about development will wash it out. You need to go back, like urbanization you are talking about. Then you are saying that smart city urbanization, then you should have a good infrastructure, good water support. But you should understand that land is very limited. How much you will plant? It's not possible at all. If you are allowing to have a mall of some, suppose 20 25 building ka. So then, from where the water will come, you have to understand this. The issues are very minor, I don't know. And I feel that we are just superficially about the ideas. Like, we are always using some very popular and attractive terms to make a point, but it is not giving substance to us. It is not giving any, it's not bringing anything to me. Like, it's very, I could have replied that yes, climate change is a problem and India should plan for a long term about it. This is supposed to be done, that is but it will not work until and unless it's like that you are always trying to wash your clothes and always going again in rain, in a dirty place. So it's not possible at all. You need to reconsider, and I think that this is, climate is innocent. Climate is not trying to pollute itself. कि मैं खुद ही अपने आप को बिगाड़ लूं. It's not that. It is we are doing that. So we need to understand, highlight those activities, not just verbally, but very sensitively. We need to understand that what activities we are doing which is causing these type of damages. You want to have a very high market, and then you want that purchase power is supposed to be more. People should buy more cars, these and that, and then on another ground you are saying that climate should not get affected. If I will have 5 cars, obviously I am going to use it. So how you will control, climate damages or climate change? And I think this is, we are hypocrites in that sense, that we really don't want to think about the future generations. It's not sustainability. We need to
Okay, so
redefine.
yeah, so that paints a very vivid picture of just how quickly things are shifting. But anyways, now let's zoom back to our into India's own internal structure, and I would request you, to discuss very briefly that how do you see that the differences, between within the states of India along the politics of water use and the farming, how does it affects and how we manage the water within the country, India?
See, this again is a very tricky question, and it's very difficult to give a very brief answer to it. Because, see, who is using how much is very important. Who is polluting how much is very important. India is not having a footnote of water uses. India is not having a footnote of level of water pollution. India is having lots of corruption when it comes to identifying the polluters. India has adopted pay and pollute policy. So in this, for me, it's very difficult to give just one line statement that this is the issue and this is the solution. I think that the solutions are having multiple layers. It's incremental model when it comes to the solution, and step by step India will go. Like first identifying the footnote is supposed to be the first step, which I don't think that India is in a position. Like water budgeting also is a very critical issue which India needs to. So water budgeting is supposed to focus with the or should align with the water footnotes. There is mismatch, and the result we can see.
Okay, so that's really brings it to the full circle how political interest, the farming choices, or the federal coordination also what we have tried to discuss. So all these things, how water is managed on the ground, it's being implemented or not implemented. That's the policy makers to decide. But for this conversation, I would like to thank Dr. Acharya for making this complicated dynamics feel very understandable and actionable. And this has been a very insightful conversation with you, for which we have discussed the local water challenges to regional cooperation, and you have helped us to see what water security is just not about policy, but it also reflects how we live, how we govern, and how we shape our future. Thank you once again. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us for our first featured episode on understanding the India's water security. If you enjoyed today's discussion, stay with us. More conversations are on the way, and we explore how water shapes our world. So this is Neeraj signing off on behalf of Asian Conflicts. Thank you.